Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Lang, and I'm the director for the Being There series. That's part of Stories for Caregivers. And welcome to Virtually Being There, episode number 3. We've been doing these now for 3 weeks, and it's been a really great opportunity for everyone to be part of a discussion after watching one of the Being There episodes. And today we've got Kimberley with us from Saskatoon. So really excited to have you here, Kimberley, and be part of the discussion. And I know it's going to be a really meaningful one because all of them have been very meaningful. So I appreciate you being here and being a part of this. So we also want you guys to be a part of the conversation. So as we talk today, feel free to type comments or questions into the chat box below the video. And we will do our best to address those. And hopefully you guys can all be part of the discussion as well. And thanks for tuning in today and being part of it with us. Great. So we're going to jump right into watching a story in a minute. But first, let's do a couple introductions of people on the screen here. Joel, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so my name is Joel Gandry, and I was the producer of the Being There series. And as a producer, it's a combination of all sorts of duties, all through the production process. So organizing everything and managing all the people that we're working with and making sure everybody knows what's happening, and then managing it through the editing and the release process as well. So that's sort of what encompasses my role.
Yeah, he does it all, basically. Everything that the production needs, right? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Phil, how about you?
I'm Phil Harrison. I'm the director of photography for this series. And essentially what that means is I take the director's ideas, being Mike, and decide how we're going to put them on the screen. From a practical standpoint, it means I show up with all the cameras, and in documentary means you're just ready and you follow the story as it unfolds, so we can get it in the edit suite and put together one of these great stories that we've done.
Yeah. Set up all the lights, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Phil is why Being There looks so great. He was able to be shooting of most of those episodes. So we've gotten a few comments over the last year or so of how wonderful it looks. So that's thanks to Phil. Awesome. Phil, thanks for being here. It'll be cool having Phil and Joel here to give some behind the scenes look at what we're doing. Great. So Kimberley.
Hi, I'm Kimberley. You're going to learn a little bit more about me coming up here when we watch the video, but I'm really excited to be here and talk about what it was like to work with these 3 amazing gentlemen.
And who's behind you there in the back?
Oh, yeah, who's that? Alina is the reason I'm a caregiver.
Yeah.
So this is my 10-year-old daughter, Alina.
Good to see you. Cool. Thanks for being a part of this too, Alina. We're glad that you're here. It'll be cool. Maybe we'll ask you a couple questions too if you're up for that. Cool. All right. Well, let's watch Kimberley's story. And as you guys watch it, I'd like you to think about one thing that resonates with you in the story. Every time we watch a story, something different comes out to us depending on where we are in our own lives. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's new things that come out to you guys here on the screen, but also to the people at home who are watching on Facebook. So feel free to type that in the chat box. One thing that stands out to you in Kimberley's story. And so let's go ahead and start watching. Here we go.
Cystic fibrosis is a genetic, life-shortening, multi-organ disease. Primarily, it's in the lungs, which is what CF is sort of known for. It also affects the pancreas, and then later in life, it affects things like their liver and their kidneys and everything else. It also affects their digestive system.
Hi, morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
This is great. Well, let's talk about some stories. So in my work in the healthcare system, I've made digital stories with hundreds of caregivers. And basically a digital story is just a short film that shares some important moments from your life using your own photos and a voiceover that we'll write together. And once we've made this story, we'll have a chance to share it with your friends and family.
I'm excited. This is 3 generations. So this is my dad's mom, then my sister and I, and then her.
Look at that. Look how tiny you are.
If you wanted to do like 1 fun, 1 medical, 1 fun.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have, if you're going to use 3, just drop 1 of those in there.
2 years of Alina's life.
Like there.
Yes, because you're talking about how you had
Both.
balance. So we need both in there. So do you think this will be surprising to your family?
In some ways it will be, yeah. because of the amount of fundraising and stuff I've always done and my attitude right out the gate. I was always like proactive and like, this isn't the end of the world. And not to say that that's how I've ever felt, but I think they've always thought I've rode a lot of highs and there weren't a lot of lows.
Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Eddie.
Sorry, and
Jenny,
nice to meet you, Jenny.
meet you.
Cool. And are you a friend or family?
I tell myself family, but
Yeah. Kelly, nice to meet you, Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
Great. Cool. So you're the dad.
That's what I've been called.
Hey, Jordan.
how you doing?
My name's Mike. Nice to meet you. Is this most people that are coming?
This is everybody.
Is everybody? Oh, great. Let's all grab a seat and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing here. So we've been hanging out for 3 days now, I guess,
Yeah.
eh? Yeah, and so we've created a little 3-minute mini movie about her experience as a caregiver, and then we'll watch it together and have a chance to chat about it afterwards. Here we go, Kimberly's story.
She spent her first 3 weeks in the hospital recovering from surgery, while I focused on educating myself about CF and how to be her caregiver. But when Alina finally came home, I realized that caregiving was only part of the story. I needed to figure out how to be her mother too. For the first few years of Alina's life, it was easy to balance those two roles as caregiver and a mom. I could move back and forth between the roles as I needed. The first day of school, that all changed. The normal checklist to get a child out the door didn't apply. Brushing hair and matching clothing were negotiable. It was treatment that was the non-negotiable. Morning started at 5 a.m., and we would barely make it for 8:45. Those mornings, I was full caregiver and had to sacrifice my desire to just be a mom. At 8 years old, Alina seemed like she was doing great, except her lung function was dramatically decreasing. She was admitted to the hospital for a 14-day round of intravenous antibiotics. After a busy first day of tests and procedures, we were sitting on the bed playing Go Fish when she broke down, sobbing. It was a slow, quiet cry, heart-wrenching. "Do you have a tummy ache, sweetie? Does anything hurt? Did I hurt your feelings?" But she kept saying no. Eventually I asked her, "Can you just tell me what's wrong?" And she said, "I am scared to die. I want to grow up and have my own kids." In that moment, I couldn't be a mom or a caregiver. I needed to be both, but I didn't know how. I felt helpless. As a mom, I wanted to tell her to embrace her emotions and move through them. As a caregiver, I wanted to fix the emotional pain and tell her that it would all be okay. But I didn't say anything. We just held each other and cried ourselves to sleep. I still have moments of helplessness, and I need to remind myself that this is the very first time I am caring for a 9-year-old with CF. Each day, I'm getting 99 things right for the one thing that may go wrong. She has never spoken of that moment on the hospital bed. As a mom and a caregiver, I'll be there when she's ready.
So was there anything that resonated with you guys? What resonated with you in the story?
I wasn't around from the beginning, but it just absolutely amazes me how she does her job so beautifully and so caring, and it looks so easy.
I know Alina's story, but to be able to see it like that and to hear Kim speak the way that she did, it really makes me think. It really makes me, it makes me love my daughter a lot, and it really makes me love my wife a lot because she gives so much of herself to make sure that Alina's healthy.
It's been such an emotional roller coaster up and down. From when
Well, I think that they both have lots of support from their family. I'm very sure they have, because it would be very hard to get through this all by yourself.
I don't know if any of us really had a conversation about like being caregivers. Like, I don't think that was ever really a thing. I think we all just kind of knew that that was like our role. You just did it. She was so precious that it didn't matter, and it was like, it's gonna take everything of all of us to make sure that she's healthy.
I think you're a pretty great group of people, an incredible family to be able to raise such a cool kid, right? Hey,
Don't leave him hanging.
Yeah.
Don't leave. She almost left you hanging.
Yeah, you almost left me hanging. Don't ever do that.
You have to navigate the fine line between like being a mother, but then also being a caregiver and being like a nurse, because they're not the same people.
Cool. What a great story. I mean, every time you watch the stories, I always learn something new, and something that really stood out to me in this time, Kimberly, and when I was watching it, is the list of medications that slowly takes over all those photos of you and Alina living life together, right? And it's that medical sort of experience can take over the rest of life. And there's moments where that happens, and there's moments where you really have to fight back to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And I think it's a beautiful visual metaphor of what it's like for medical parents, right? To not have these lists of to-do medications and stuff to take over the rest of their life. It's beautiful. I love the way that, it was really fun working with you on your story. I love how that ended up coming together. I think it shows a lot. So anyways, that's something that stood out to me as I was watching it this time. And so let's see what it stood out to you guys as you were watching. So Phil, how about we start with you? What's one thing that resonated with you as you were watching Kimberly's story?
Yeah, one thing that really resonated with me this time watching your story, Kimberly, was like the capacity of you and your family to care, and how amazingly well you guys did that. Yeah, just really came out to me this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing how much we can deal with change and how we can adapt to challenging times. Yeah,
when you have that network of people around you, right? And I love how your friend said, or sister or friend said, we never really thought about it as caregiving. It was just part of what we were going to be doing now as a family. Yeah, your sister. Yeah. I love that. I love when we have those networks as communities around us, like Phil's saying, you can handle a lot. You can take on a lot. So cool. Thanks, Phil. I'll come back to you in a bit, Phil, for some more behind the scenes sort of questions. But Joel, how about you? What was one thing that resonated with you in the story?
I think what resonated with me this time watching it was when you said, Kimberly, about the 99 things in a day that you might that you get right for the maybe one thing that you get wrong. And I think that really resonated with me just as a parent as well, right? Like we're all so in tune right now with what's happening in our kids' lives and in our lives. And I know that I'm worried about like what the choices I'm making, right? But I think that really helps remind me that there might be some things that we're getting wrong. We're human. We're all going to make mistakes, but there are so many more things that we're getting right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a good reminder right now, because there's probably a lot of parents out there, who are just facing what you faced years ago for the very first time and wondering, am I making the right choices as a caregiver, as a protector for these kids right now, right? So yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing, you guys. Really appreciate that. And so Kimberly, and Alina too, if you want to answer this, you guys made this about a year and a half ago now. So what is it like for you to watch it now? What was it like for you to watch it today?
I feel like I should have desensitized myself to it by watching it a few times before right now. I'm reminded of how beautiful watching it the first time was, because it feels a little like a pseudo first time. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with you as you presented this rough cut to me, and I just remember just being able to let go of so much, and to see people who were strangers not more than 48 hours earlier just invest so much into who I am as a parent, who my family is. It just kind of took me back there at just how amazing the whole thing was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember, you see it in people's faces, right? After the story ended, it was just dead quiet. And people were just sort of stunned by, sort of how beautiful it was, but also how meaningful it was. Like there's just a lot that was going on, I think, in all of us as we watched it for the first time as a group. And also for us as we watched it together for the first time after we worked on it, right? So yeah, it is sort of cool to be taken back to that experience and looking at it from a year and a half later. So I have lots of questions for you, and I'm sure there may be some caregivers out there who have questions for you as well. So I'm just want to ask you a couple things. So one of the things that you mentioned in your story is you wrote a lot of highs, but and you didn't really talk too much about some of the lows as a family. So much because you were so active as a fundraiser, as sort of an engaged parent, doing your best. And so I guess the question is, after sharing the story with your family, has that influenced anything? Has that changed anything, being able to sort of share that difficult moment that you guys spent in the hospital together?
Yes, it has. Once it was able to be out onto the internet, got reached out by a lot of people that I used to be close with, that having to distance myself from them not because of anything about our friendship, but more so the responsibility of caregiving made it exceptionally challenged to have a social life. And so your family is kind of built in, they're always going to be around, but you lose friends along the way when you have to prioritize 3 hours worth of treatment over going over for dinner. And so I was able to actually rekindle a couple of friendships as a result of some of those people recognizing the struggle that I experienced in the early part of Alina's life, and when she didn't have any independence. And it's honestly probably been one of the most beautiful things to come from it, because in particular, there was one person that I lost in my life that it hurt me so hard. And now she's back in my life, and it's just absolutely glorious. So yeah, it's changed a lot because people check in more. There's people understand like my history a little differently.
Yeah. It's funny because we created these stories to support other caregivers, but I think maybe one of the best things that could come out of it is people get an inside look of what it's like to be a caregiver. And so people who are on the outside of that experience, that deeper understanding allows all of us to be more gracious to each other, right? And once you know someone's story, you respond to them differently, right? And I think we hear that all the time, right? You don't know where that person's been when they cut you off in traffic, right? I think it applies to this situation as well, to caregiving. You don't know what this person's daily routine is like, what they're facing at home. 3 hours of treatment, that changes everything when you can gain that deeper understanding. I think that's the power of a good story, right? Is we really get a deeper understanding of each other's experiences. So that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think it looks like someone has a question. So Joel, if you wouldn't mind letting us know what that is. Oh, you're still muted there.
Yeah,
there we go.
Alison had a question, and I think it's very relative to now, especially in your story, Kimberly. You talked a lot about the network of people that you have, like friends and family that have helped with that caregiving. And Alison was wondering, how has that network been helping now, especially in these times? And how have they been able to help, especially at a distance when we need to be at a distance in these times? What does that look like now?
A lot of the support is coming in fresh baked bread.
Yeah, just like everyone else, right? Yeah.
Homemade buns and fresh baked bread. It has been a little bit harder, definitely, given the current landscape, because they aren't able to be there for me in the same way they could before, and it's hard on them knowing that more falls on to me. But they've been making sure that they check in, say hello, come for so very, very, very socially distanced visits. And then just my dad is now a senior, so he's offered to go get me all my groceries at the seniors hour, so that I don't have to put myself in the public, because everyone who I meet, Alina meets through me, and so the more at home I can stay, the safer she is as well. And so they've been doing what they can think of, and it's been quite amazing to see them get creative.
Mhm. Yeah, everyone has to be a lot more creative these days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that sort of brings us to one of the other topics I wanted to ask you about, things have obviously, you lived through a lot of the stuff that everyone is currently experiencing right now, early on in Alina's life. What has it been like for you, dealing with this whole COVID-19 pandemic as a family, but also just you guys as a little family?
I think most people probably expect a different answer than what I might give you, which is right now we're pretty chill. Like where there isn't a lot of fear going on, and a lot of the relaxed nature comes from when Alina was first born. Just being a new parent, but then also having this diagnosis where the world is a pandemic in our lives. So germs are important and cross-contamination are important 365 days a year, not just now. And so I lived through that pandemic style fear when Alina was in the first few years of her life, in understanding how germs are transmitted, what the immune system is like and how it works. And so as a result, I was able to educate myself as I needed to learn things. And so now that education is what allows me to sit and say, yeah, I understand why isolating is a good thing. Like, I'm not challenging it. I'm not upset with it. And I'm not fearful of it, because I understand how to stay healthy through something like this, because we have to do it. I've been doing it for 10, almost 11 years now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. It's sort of amazing when you think about it, despite all the challenges you guys have faced, it did build a lot of resiliency in the way that you guys live your life that is translated really well into the current health crisis that everyone's facing. Right. And it's amazing to think, that a serious illness can actually build your coping ability, and it doesn't just have to tear things away or take things down. It can actually build resiliency in your life.
It 100% in our lives has offered so much more than it's taken. And if I could do it all again, I wouldn't pick a different story.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting way to start thinking about caregiving, right? Is instead of what is being taken away, what is it building in you? What is it cultivating in you? What resiliency is it giving you to face the other challenges that you have in your life? Which I guess, for Alina, you have overcome a lot of challenges early on in your life. And I think that's going to help you when you go out and start facing a lot of challenges in the outside of your home as you grow up. And I think that's pretty cool. So Alina, I wanted to ask you a question since you're there. What was it like for you to see your mom's digital story that she created, and watch it with your family and even watch it today?
It was pretty cool.
What about it was cool?
How she did it all.
How she did it all. Yeah. Yeah. And what was your favorite part of it?
I liked it all.
You liked it all. Now, when you say the way I did it all, do you mean as in like all of the work taking care of you, how I explained how doing it all, or do you mean like the video itself? How I took care of you. That's one thing Alina probably maybe has only gotten a lens on through this video, is because she doesn't have memories of how much time we spent doing treatment when she was young. And it was way different then than it is now, because now she's independent to a degree or the next. And so this is probably the first time she's really had a lens, and making this video and seeing it as to just how much it took to take care of her. And I believe, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn for her, but at her dad's side of the family, he just had a baby a couple months ago. And so I think there's this contrast she hasn't had until now as to the difference of what it's like for them to take care of their healthy baby brother versus seeing what was laid out in the video as to the difference between just being a parent and balancing being a parent and a caregiver.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I want to get back to that because that's a really important part of your story is the balancing between the medical and the parenting stuff. But I see here that we've got a question. So I'll throw it over to Joel and he can ask you.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Kelsey, was wondering what Kimberly, what is one of Alina's characteristics that you most admire, especially I would add to that, especially through all of the time you've spent with her, but also through these times right now that we're in.
Oh, I have to pick one. She is, Mike's used it. She's resilient. Like things will phase her. They will. Like blood work has been a 10-year challenge, and we're finally on the other side of sort of being able to do blood work. But I think paired with resiliency comes the bravery to be resilient. So she's just such a brave kid. She isn't really scared to do much. She's adventurous. Nothing scares her. And I think it's because she's just been through so much more. She's learned that the little things aren't nearly as scary as some of the things that most kids maybe would be scared of, as like, you know, having a 14-inch tube fed through your arm into your heart. Perspective.
Yeah, when you put it that way.
Yeah, perspective. Yeah, when you put it that way, it sounds a lot different, doesn't it? You know, the monsters under your bed aren't much compared to a 14-inch tube in your heart. Yeah.
So just resiliency, and I think that bravery pairs well with that.
Yeah.
With that characteristic.
Cool.
There's
That's
just
a great question. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, you know, that's a great response. You know, I think even for young children, you know, the challenges they face build resiliency in many different ways, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Well, before we go back to you, Kimberly, I want to ask Phil a question because, you know, Phil, as the director of photography, you're behind the scenes, you get to see a whole lot of stuff that we don't get to see on the screen as we watch the story. So what's one thing that, you know, maybe the audience didn't get to see that you got to saw that you really appreciated about the story?
I mean, I think it comes across in the screening, but how close and supportive Kimberly's family really is. Like on that screening day, you could just feel how passionate that family is for each other and taking care of each other and taking care of Alina. And you know, like it was really, really beautiful to see on the day. And I mean, we can only fit so much of that into those short movies. So it was like that was really touching to see how awesome her family came together for her and always has, like, you know, super supportive and great to see. There. Yeah.
And what's it like filming one of those screenings? Because that's a big part of all the episodes is these discussions people are having. Yeah. And what was it like for you?
It's a little it's not chaotic, but it's a little challenging in that you have 2 cameras and a lot of people in a room,
and a small room at that, probably.
Yeah. So I have to light it to some extent so we can see everyone and hopefully not see my lights and keep everybody safe and away from them. And the biggest challenge is to just observe the room and hopefully capture and not miss anybody's like really beautiful comments or reactions. And you know, you just have to be really aware of what's going on in the room, you know, we got that nice moment with Alina's dad, stuff like that. That's challenging to get when you've got 12 people and myself and Joel just trying to capture it all.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
It's one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think that's one of the coolest parts about the Being There series is how you are able to capture the very meaningful moments in these group conversations. And I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult that actually is in the moment where there's no structure and everyone's just having a conversation, to be able to move the camera fast enough to capture those. I think it's pretty incredible. So Phil, anyways, I appreciate you talking a bit about that. I think it's really cool to hear that side of things too. So Kimberly, we're gonna wrap up in a moment if there's no more questions online. But I sort of wanted to ask you this one. You know, I talked about earlier, you know, the balancing the mother and the caregiver role. You know, you talk a bit about it in the showing itself, in the screening. But I guess I've sort of wondered, you know, what is in your mind the main difference between those two roles, the caregiver medical thing and the mother role. And then how do you balance those? Because I think that's something we're all facing right now. Not on the same level as what you guys faced for the last 12 years. But parents out there are trying to have these conversations with their kids, about medical stuff, and then also just be there for them as parents, and continue to teach them and discipline them and help them become awesome people. It's a real big balancing act that we're all doing right now. So if there's anything you could share with us, I'm sure we would all appreciate it, based on your 12 years of experience.
So the biggest difference I would say between sort of parenting and caregiving is parenting is a collaboration, even if it comes in the stricter side of things where it's punishment, the punishment should fit the crime. And so it's usually, in most cases, I would say it would be like a conversation, right? You're getting grounded, or you're getting your electronics taken away, and one is more severe than the other based on the indiscretion. And so it's collaborative, it's a team effort. When it comes to caregiving, there is no leniency. It's not like, well, your medication you're supposed to take at 7:30. Well, be fine if we take it at 11:30. Well, no. So if you're grounded for 1 week or 2 weeks based on what you're doing, there's a variable. Caregiving is regimented. So there's no opportunity to collaborate or to make changes, and it's dictated to you. So it's not even your own choice in the sense as how that lays out. And so it's told to you, this is what you need to do. This is when you need to do it every day, and how frequently you need to do it. And so it feels like you're living in a manual in some ways. Whereas being a parent, there's just more flexibility.
Yeah, it's more fluid and flexible. That's a great description. You basically just described what I've been experiencing for the last 2 months, as my little daughter wants to go play with her friends, and you have to be pretty firm about it, right? Like, there's no room for flexibility in that discussion, right? And I think that definitely has been a challenge. It's amazing. You just sort of articulated, I think, what a lot of parents have experienced. So I mean, how do you balance those two things?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that I even fully know the answer to that yet. And and I may never actually know how I'm doing it, only simply because I still feel like I'm not fully doing it. I think when I'm constantly striving for better balance, so that I'm never actually balanced, if that makes sense. But the biggest thing for us is as Alina gets more independent, I'm trying to instill in her that the more time we spend arguing or fighting about doing treatment or taking medication is the more time we're giving to CF. And CF already consumes so much of our day. So why spend an extra 10 minutes with her, arguing about whether she has to do her treatment before or after she takes a shower and things like that. So let's just make it a priority. Let's get it done so that we can go into being a family, and to being a mother-daughter, and to enjoying our life. And so, just kind of getting it out of the way in that kind of sense, which is wake up, we prioritize treatment, we prioritize medications, and then we live our lives after that's done. And so far, that's been the only way to give me a sense of balance. It definitely, the whole day goes awry when we don't do that. It's amazing how different of a day we have when it's like, okay, we'll have breakfast first, that's fine. And then go take a shower and get dressed, do that. And then all of a sudden it's like 11:30 and we've completely forgotten to do treatment. And then we realize at 2:00 in the afternoon that we actually did very little of her treatment because it's just out of sorts. And so we need that structure in order to make sure that, because her treatments are our priority above and beyond everything else.
Yeah. I love that comment you made about the more time we spend fighting about it, the more time we're giving to it, and that's a great way, I think, to approach all of these things that we face as caregivers, right? Like how much time are we giving to the illness that we're with? Because it deserves not all of our time, right? There's so many other things to life than illness and caregiving, than all the challenges or medications or treatments we're facing. And so how are we going to spend our time? How are we going to budget our time? And I think fighting about it, with your kids is obviously going to take a lot more time. And I think that's a great way to approach it. It's a great way to reframe the whole idea of caregiving. How much time are we going to allow it to take from us, in that way. Great. Really wonderful. Cool. Well, we have one more question here for Alina. And so Joel, go for it.
So the question for you, Alina, was about your mom. What is one of the things you admire about her? If you consider just thinking about both watching the video and our experience making the video with you, you probably got to learn a lot more about her during that process and about how she looked after you when you were quite little that you wouldn't necessarily remember. Is there one thing that stands out to you as something you admire about all that she does?
How she still makes time to like snuggle with me and hug me, even though being a mom and like taking care of me.
Cool. Yes. Snuggles and hugs, the best. That's
Yeah.
what every parent loves, right? You can always have time for that, no matter how much caregiving you have to do. Right?
See, we're taking advantage of it now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We're getting some snuggles in right now.
Awesome. That's so cool. Great. Well, thanks so much, Kimberly and Alina, for being here. It's so great to hear, a little more in depth about what your life is like, outside of the 10-minute little video that we get to see of it. And I know I took a couple really important things away today as a parent myself, and trying to be a parent in the midst of a pandemic, and care for my children in the best way possible. And I think I've learned a lot from you already today. And Joel and Phil, thanks so much for taking time to be here and share your insights and your thoughts. Really appreciate you guys being here as well. So thank you to everyone on Facebook Live for sending in your questions. Feel free to share this video with your friends and family, to anyone who may be having a difficult time caregiving right now, or I would say just in general, any parents. I think this is really valuable for a lot of parents who are being caregivers right now, whether they're a medical parent or just someone who's trying to figure out how to parent in the midst of a pandemic. I mean, it has lots of value. So please share this video. And if you would like to watch Kimberly's story again, or any of the Being There series, just go to Stories for Caregivers, click on videos, and find the Being There playlist, and you can watch all 13 of those episodes. Great. All right. Well, thanks so much, you guys. I will see you all later. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye, Alina.
Bye.